Yesterday, Raila Odinga called for quite a number of things. Actually, it's a 6-point plan outlined on the Standard newspaper. And one of that is economic sabotage. Dr. Nikal, we already have lost about 70 billion shillings in the last 2 months with regard to this political environment that we're in. And right now, Raila Odinga is calling for further pushing of the economy with the protests and everything that we've seen for the last couple of 2 months. Don't you think that maybe enough at some point is enough?
You've picked one point and talked about political economic sabotage.
Yeah. That was in regards to the CS.
But it was actually fairly specific. And it was looking at certain companies that actually seem to support the issue of poor election processes. What you have to look at, what did NASA say yesterday? NASA said it will continue with the struggle to make sure that electoral processes are proper in Kenya. Just like way back there was struggle to get into the multi-party system, then there was struggle to change the constitution, as there was struggle to get devolution. You must look at it in a bigger picture. And what was said was the organization we are calling National Resistance Movement will, apart from other things, look at those who are being part of the hindrance to proper elections. Now, you can't then say like bigger economic sabotage that you look at all aspects of the economy. It was very specific. So I think that's how it's
looking at specific companies.
Specific companies that that don't seem to accept the progressive ways that are necessary to have proper elections, so that after an election, you then have an election that everybody is happy with. Look at this particular election, the repeat election. It definitely was worse than the first one of August, because in this one, the commissioners themselves were not satisfied. One commissioner even left the country and said, I'm in there. And we know how active she was in this, and said, I don't think we're going to deliver a credible election. The chairman himself, very close to the election, came out and said, the way I'm seeing events now, I'm not going to be able to deliver credible elections. You come to the day of election themselves, the chairman is still giving figures that keep changing. He comes with the figure of 48%, then he drops down to 33%. In the meantime, the Deputy Prime Minister is talking about 7.5 million before the IBC itself is still talking of 6.5. Now, how can that be? So what NASA is doing is looking at the bigger picture. Okay, this election has not been proper because of the process. We now want to continue struggling so that we have proper election processes, and in future, people will know, those who are charged with the responsibility of conducting elections, IBC, it is independent, it has powers, it will know if we don't do it properly, and we must do it properly.
All right.
And if we don't, then we're going to have problems. And that is the gist of the matter of what was said yesterday. The other things like the assemblies, if you look at them, they are all moving in the direction we are going to have proper electoral democracy. That's what we are going for. Yeah.
Let's look at this in a bigger context. And I'll be speaking about the economic sabotage shortly, because I had an occasion to work in other countries that engaged in that. I would, with respect, call it a bit of irresponsible call. But before then, we are seeing a leadership that is hell-bent to achieve its objective through any means. One of them, believe it or not, is violence. And clearly, this national resistance movement is not a movement as we know it. It's actually a conglomeration of militia. And we have specific incidents that are in public domain about this militia. Let me tell you, when they talked about the boycott of election, do you know the boycott of the elections were boycotted in specific 4 counties in this country? Actually, not boycotted. People, ordinary people, even in Nyanza, who would otherwise have opted out of their own volition either to vote or not, were actually denied a chance to vote or to decide not to vote by militia. So we have a plan by the leadership here to actually meet and met violence on people. We have seen that in Nyanza. We have seen actually that being exported deliberately so that this can be seen as a national core to Western. We have seen that happening in Kawangware. Do you know, actually, that in Kawangware, we have, and I'm wondering why some people have not been arrested, because we know that some people from that coalition have actually actively sought for violence so that then this can be seen as a national thing. The international community can come in, and I'm relating that to the business issue, so that then this country can be seen that is in fire. And we have had a history of this. In 2007, 2008, the same leader propagated this narrative of violence so that the international community can come and sort of force everyone to sit around the table and talk. So it's a deeper and deeper strategy. If you come to the economic boycott, I mean, let me ask you, I mean, which it is the same assumptions I'm saying. They look around, they decide that company seemingly looks to be supporting Jubilee. It's the same assumption I'm saying. They look at ABC, it is Yoba. Now they look around and see this company X, it is the one that is supporting Jubilee, and they call for boycott. Now, the economy of this country is very integrated. If you go to company X, that company X has employed the son of the Daktari here. That company is selling products in Nyanza, in Western, in Coast. So when you call for boycott, are you saying that when the products are not brought from that company, the son of the NASA supporter who is here, Daktari, should be sacked? What are you talking about?
All right.
It is more of an integrated economy. So all these 6 points, the bottom line is that, and they said yesterday, a statement I had, that if there is no justice for the people, there should be more peace for government. Who is government? Which is this government that should not have peace? I mean, when you're talking about violence, in Kawangware, is it government that is suffering because of violence? It is the brothers and sisters in Kawangware who are being slaughtered because of certain people who want power through another door. So there is no peace for government.
All right.
Let me ask about violence and justice. Do you know that injustice in itself is violence? So it's actually, injustice is the basic cause of violence. Because when people feel, they feel that they are excluded, they feel there is no injustice for them, then they'll come out and express themselves. And if that is not done in a peaceful manner, then obviously it will look violent. So the basic violence is injustice. If you remove injustice, you are very unlikely that you will have violence.
In fact,
now let
him
point
just
for you.
finish.
Let me point for him. In fact, one of the discussion, maybe another day, that is very good for this country. I'd like us to discuss about the injustice that is being meted on the people of Nyanza, for example. And a good example, and Daktari comes from there. We have people, and ordinary Mwananchi, for example, in this election, do you know there are some voting that happened in Nyanza? The people of Nyanza would possibly have wanted to get a chance to vote or not to vote. But you have this leadership that has stifled everyone. Even Daktari, if he is honest enough, I've had leadership and I've worked in Nyanza, where you have leaders who want to oppose the current architecture in Nyanza. But they are stifled.
Right.
That is where injustice starts.
Let me
and
say,
that we need
right.
to discuss.
We're running out of time.
The injustice is not about injustice to the people of Nyanza. This thing of profiling Nyanza as the only place where people actually boycott election is wrong. It happened in Western Kenya, it happened in Coast. But I think it is politically prudent to take it to Nyanza so that you have a tribal narrative. And I think that is totally... When there was a push for multipartyism, was it only for the people of Nyanza? When there was a push for change of the constitution, was it only for the people of Nyanza? When we've gone for devolution and we push for that, is it only the people of Nyanza? And when we say that what we are talking about is violence, what actually was said that the People's Assembly, as we are talking about, will be elected leaders, leadership from other sectors, particularly workers, the church leaders, and so on, who will come together and now push for proper electoral processes. And that is the movement. Now, I think it is the word resistance that is being misconstrued to mean violence or militia. Now, let's talk about this issue of militia in Nyanza. I was in Kisumu myself, and the demonstrations that were there. More people were killed by the police than by the demonstrators themselves. In fact, if you want to bring out how many people were killed by demonstrators, how many people have been killed by this, we know that over nearly 60, over 40 were killed by the police. And so if you look at injustice and you want to just say injustice in Nyanza, I think you are just profiling Nyanza because the leader of NASA comes from Nyanza. And therefore you want to box the leader into Nyanza and make him look tribal, while this is actually a national leader, international.
Let me say a minute. The people of Nyanza are good people. The people of Central are good people. And we must ask the leadership that don't steal for people. Let the people have the freedom. Now, it is unfortunate if there is any one person that was killed by the police in Nyanza. It is very unfortunate, and that should be investigated. However, we must also quickly add that it is completely unacceptable for militia who are under the command of people we know to go and actually attempt to get a gun from the police. It is unacceptable to have militia to go to a police station and attempt to get in. It is unacceptable for militia to actually hold hostage the ABC staff so that they don't get to the people to be given an opportunity.
All right,
it is unacceptable.
Let me tell you,
I want to tell you about this thing of IBC being held hostage very quickly. I was in Kisumu myself. The people themselves are actually so unhappy that they said we don't want this election. I myself spent time telling young people, do not go into those polling stations. Do not have any war with the police. It's actually the people themselves. It's not like anybody went there and organized them. And if you say, call this guy, and you come together and say, now let's go and do this. It's actually spontaneous. I was there and I saw it.
But we also saw some leaders, Ruth Odinga, if you remember, and Fred Outa, who actually investigated for, masterminding the chaos.
Correctly. When you have a situation of injustice that has not been addressed, turning into a turmoil, of course some people will go in a direction that may not be proper. And the only way to handle it is to take it to court as it is in court.
All right,
then the court will make a determination.
All right, we have to wrap up, but I want to ask this question, Dr. Nyikal. We have this 6-point plan by Raila Odinga, and there are people who are asking, isn't it easier to just take the Supreme Court way again, so that we don't have this protest? Because we've seen this protest leading to the loss of life by many Kenyans. We've seen the police brutality, and even NASA has called the government on that. We've seen the economy being affected by the same protest. Isn't it just easier to just go to the Supreme Court?
The Supreme Court way, I mean, probably NASA at its leadership will discuss that. But the Supreme Court actually now takes a narrow view that what our party leader or coalition leader is because he lost an election, so we want to repeal. If you look at the 6 points, it is much broader. The number 1 says why there's continued failure of electoral bodies. So that is a much broader issue. Why the performance of the security people is not in line with the new constitution. That is a much broader. The court will not address that. Now, how the political architecture of the presidency and parliament, why there's so much action.
But
that's
all
a much
these things can be solved within a framework, not the protests that we have been seeing on the ground.
A protest is also a framework. If we allow dialogue in the context of making proper procedures for elections, not this issue of Nusumkati that has demonized dialogue, then all these issues can be addressed, and actually peacefully. Now, protests and demonstrations are a right Article 37 of the Constitution.
But we've seen
so
the
long as they are
direction.
done,
We've seen the direction that the protests and demonstrations have taken in the last couple of weeks.
And let me tell you what happened. In fact, there's been an improvement even in the demonstration. I've been in this thing from the beginning. Towards some time later, actually, we were, and you could see on TV, we told the people this must be peaceful. Now, when you have peaceful demonstration, then at the end, like in Kisumu, at the end of the demonstration, a few people, looters and criminals, come in and now want to take advantage. Now that is the work of the police. And even if the police is stopping them, they should kill them.
All right, we want to wrap up the conversation,
yes,
and we want to talk about dialogue, because this dialogue word has been thrown all over the place, and it's not nusumkaten like Dr. Nyekali is saying. So what exactly is this dialogue all about?
You know, this country, dialogue is okay. And dialogue has been happening in this country all the time. And we have had conversations. Actually, I would not want to call them dialogues, because dialogue seems to have gotten a certain meaning. It's national conversations on issues. We have had issues in this country in the last 5 years. We get opportunities to come together. We have frameworks. We have institutions that prosper dialogue. We have parliament that is in place. It is not contested. We have conversations that, in fact, I would be happy. NASA, I saw they will have a task force to make certain proposals. I have seen civil society. They are making certain proposals. I have seen the churches making certain proposals. I would encourage as many people, in fact, even Parliament, to make proposals on moving forward.
All right, but some of these proposals are actually to have another election, even from the civil society.
That is why we are refusing, because the NASA leader, Raila Odinga, has said he will not have any dialogue on anything except on elections. In my view, personal view, the elections were closed on 26th of October. We must diffuse these conversations to be among the leaders and politicians in Nairobi. Kenyans had an opportunity to dialogue and to cast and decide how do they want their country governed in the next 5 years. They did that on 26th of October.
So according to you, what is this dialogue
that is
supposed to be all about?
For me, at a personal level, not even as Jubilee.
Right.
For me, there needs to be ongoing national conversation on how to improve our institutions, our structures, our constitution. That must not be tied to this election.
To the election.
That must not be tied to Raila Odinga. That must be tied to improving. In fact, after the election, the last election, finally, we had the Krieger Commission that made certain recommendations. Who knows? Some of these conversations, especially within Parliament, even NASA, when they make their proposal, I would encourage them to bring them to Parliament.
All right.
So that we can consider them within the framework of Parliament.
All right.
Not about Raila Odinga.
We have to wrap up. Dr. Nyekali.
No, you start with where the problem started.
Right.
The problem started with the process of elections. And that is when the word dialogue came. So the dialogue must continue to be about the process of elections. We said at the beginning, the 8th of August election was not done well. We've said that the election, the re-election, the presidential re-election of 23 was not done well. And so if there's a dialogue, those are the things you dialogue about that election. You cannot say that, you cannot say we accept the outcome of a process which you said was faulty. Then you will not be sincere. If you say the process is faulty, then the outcome of that process itself you cannot accept. So if you dialogue, you must start to dialogue about the process, and that includes the outcome.
All right. But I mean, Uhuru Kenyatta and Deputy President William Ruto have been very hell-bent that, if its dialogue is not anything to do with the election, so where does this leave the country?
No. Their original position, they are changing, they are shifting goalposts. Their original position that there is nothing like dialogue about Nusumkati. No, and then they said, then they now turned around and say that after the elections, they can now dialogue. But let's look at it. If you want a dialogue about the election, then how can you say, I'm now just ready to do dialogue after the election has been done and has granted me a position which will probably give me advantage? That is insincere.
We have to wrap up.
Let me
have to wrap up.
Very briefly. The issue of conversation and dialogue is not about elections. Elections were held on 26th of October. But there could be people who think there were challenges and irregularities or illegalities on that election. There is a constitutional roadmap that is very clear. Go to court, go to the Supreme Court. NASA did that last time. They can still do that this time. Go challenge in the Supreme Court. After that is concluded, let us now as a country come together and ask ourselves, how do we continue improving our institutions and our structures moving forward?
All right.
And that must be diffused from the NASA, from the Jubilee and into a national conversation that is not talking about personalities, not talking about the elections.
All right,
thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your time. I've been speaking to Dr. James Nikal, who's the Seme Member of Parliament, together with Honorable Patrick Mariru, who's the Laikipia West Member of Parliament. Thank you for your time. All right.